You ready? This meeting of the Margate Planning Board is called to order. Please stand for the flag salute. Take your seats. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please. We didn't start the case yet. Sit down. We haven't done the case yet.
Tom
Okay.
Collins. Clem Wozleski. Clem Wozleski. Okay. Rich Patterson.
Here.
Mike Cristaldi. Here. Jim Galantino. Margaret Gubernalti.
Here.
Craig Palmisano. Here. Despina Hess. Sorry about that. Remy Pelosi. Joe DiGirolamo.
Here.
Ron Gruppo. Mike Richmond.
Here.
Stephen Giuseppe.
Here.
We've got a meeting after the meeting, so stick around for the case. Okay.
That's why I came.
Okay.
Take a nap on the trees. Come on, study trees.
This meeting is being held in accordance with due public notice thereof and pursuant to the New Jersey State Sunshine Law. Notice of this meeting was advertised in the press, and a copy of same has been posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Notice of this, all applicants are hereby advised that should you receive board approval tonight, you must come forward and sign a form which informs you regarding the timing of receiving building permits and mercantile licenses. At the end of your case tonight, please see the board administrator to sign the two information sheets. I'd like to hear a motion to approve the minutes of June 27th.
Make that motion. I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. I'd like to hear a motion for approval of decisions and resolutions. Number 24, 2019, Larry and Clara Schreiber. Number 25, 2019, Charlene Polikoff.
I'll make that motion. I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Motion passes. First case tonight is, excuse me, Chuck Simons, 9615 Ventnor Avenue, Block 230, Lot 28, in the C2 district to grant C variance relief for building coverage, front yard setback, side yard setback, D variance for light manufacturing on first, second, and third floor, major site plan, and possibly others. Taxes and water are current, and proof of advertising and notifying is satisfied. Mr. McLaren, would you be sworn in, please?
Mr. McLaren, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thanks.
For the record, Joe DiGirolamo has recused himself.
Thank you, board members, board chairman. My report is July 19, 2019, in regard to Chuck Simons, 9615 Ventnor Avenue, Block 230, Lot 28, in the C2 zone, seeking C variances and possibly a D variance for use. The background is as follows. The applicant is seeking relief from the ordinances of the city of Margate in order to add commercial space at the ground level to relocate a pet grooming business. The second and third floors will be expanded onto as well to accommodate light assembly and provide office space. The ordinance does not specifically state that manufacturing or assembly is a permitted use, so a use variance may be required. In my opinion, light assembly of the nature to be provided here is no different than assembling a gas grill or bicycle, and the planning board, based on the testimony, shall decide whether a use variance is required if this type of work is similar to other commercial uses. In addition to the use variance, C variances for bulk standards are being sought. Parking variances may or may not be required, depending on the use and increase of office space. I've since updated that. On page 2 is my zoning chart. If you go down to the parking, retail space is, the requirements are 1 space per 200 square feet. And in the zone, if you increase the footprint or increase office area, you have to provide parking for that additional space. So 6 spaces plus 4 spaces, you need 10 additional spaces. They have 15. They're reducing 6 to 9, so yes, they do need a variance for parking.
So, Roger, so
How many parking spaces will there be? if-
9,
Just 9.
right, 9 total.
And what's required?
15.
15?
25.
25, and I'll go into that further in the
Okay.
next rendition. Page 3, variance is required. You can see the documents reviewed, including the engineer's report, which the applicant shall address. Use variance, I have it asterized because, again, my belief is, depending on the testimony, this may not be a use variance. Side yard setback for the building on the right side, whereas the minimum setback for the C2 zone is 5 feet. Existing setback is 2.2 feet, and the proposed minimum setback is 2.2 feet. They're expanding a non-conforming setback. Building coverage, whereas the maximum building coverage permitted within the C2 zone is 50%, and 61% is proposed, therefore requiring a variance. Off-street parking, whereas the requirement is to maintain existing parking and to provide the additional parking required by expanding the building. 15 spaces exist. The building expansion requires an additional 10 spaces for a total of 25, and 9 are proposed. Waivers requested submission of a
It's,
checklist.
Roger,
Yes.
it says they need a variance for 0 setback on Ventnor Avenue. You didn't list that. Look at your chart.
I did the side yard.
Front yard.
Front yard, yes.
Proposed 0 needs a variance.
Correct. So that's the fourth variance that they need, is for a front yard setback, whereas 10 feet is required, 9.87 feet exists, and 0 feet is proposed. So I took an excerpt of the off-street parking requirement from our zoning schedule. Minimum required off-street parking schedule for non-residential uses. The number of off-street parking spaces required for any non-residential use shall be determined by reference to parking schedule 1 below. No on-site parking shall be required for existing non-residential floor area within the Central Business District C1, C2, waterfront special, and riparian zones. However, existing parking, if you have it, must be maintained. Parking for residential conversions and all building additions, however, shall be provided on-site in the same zone. Skipping down to number 2, the use variance is for providing assembly operations within an office space area. The board may find that the use variance is not required, provided on a full description of what is occurring. The use may be more similar to putting together a gas grill or a bicycle, such as a retail store. And if the material, if the widget, let's call it, is sold at the store, that's more argument for their case not to have a use variance. The side yard setback variance is an expansion of a non-conforming setback. Building coverage exceeds as proposed the allowable building coverage for proposed expansion. Requires a variance. And the front yard setback variance and the parking variance. In regard to the site plan items, hours of operation needs to be defined, number of employees needs to be defined, a loading zone is required, trash and recycling needs to be shown and discussed and must comply with the city's ordinance for storage and collection. There are not any easements shown on the property. I'll leave that up to the applicant to discuss as with these other items. The property fronts along Ventnor Avenue, which is a county road, Atlantic County, and is subject to approval from Atlantic County for site plan. The applicant needs to discuss the comments raised by the city engineer's office, in particular to any waivers that should be requested. The applicant shall submit a checklist. The entrance to the site is being relocated from Ventnor Avenue to the exit on Monroe Avenue, which will be widened and will likely be for ingress and egress for location. The amount of traffic along Monroe Avenue is not increasing. It's the same amount of traffic either way. For variance relief, you can see my recommendations. We don't need to go through all those items, but I turn over to the applicant, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening. Good evening. Brian Callahan of the law firm Callahan, Thompson & Thompson. On behalf of the applicant, Chuck Simons. Mr. Chairman, I have Mr. Simons here, Mrs. Simons, Craig Dothay, and John Barnhart. If you want to swear them in all right now, we can get them, and then I can bring
Yes.
Mr. Simons up first.
Yes.
Wanna stand up, guys?
Sure. Why don't you each just go down the line, state your name and address or business address, and then I'll swear you all in at once.
Okay, Chuck Simons, I live at 302 North Jerome Avenue in Margate. The business address is 3 South Franklin Avenue. is where the pet salon is. We also have Pet Friendly Ventures, which is the offices for the pet salon at 8510 Ventnor Avenue. We also rent storage at 1 South Granville Avenue.
That's sufficient.
My name's Beth Simons. I too reside at 302 North Jerome Avenue.
That's okay.
Same addresses, right? That's
Ditto.
fine.
John Barnhart, Arthur Ponzio Company and Associates, 400 North Dover Avenue, Atlantic City.
Greg Gothay, architect, 33 North Brighton Avenue, Atlantic City.
And the four of you each swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Manis, with respect to the qualifications, Mr. Barnhart?
We accept both their qualifications.
Let me start with Mr. Simons. Chuck, why don't you walk the board through how long you've been in Margate? You already discussed the 3 businesses. Give them a little input on the 3 businesses and what they do, and then we'll ask them specific questions to address Mr. McCarney's report.
Okay. I was born
Speak into the
7407
microphone, please.
Ventnor Avenue in
Pick
Mar...
up the microphone. There you go. Move away from the other microphone.
Okay, I was born at 7407 Ventnor Avenue in Marvin Gardens. Actually was born in Atlantic City Medical Center and brought there. I am a native son. I went to Amherst Avenue School. My children then went to Amherst Avenue School. My mother had the California Slack Shop in Atlantic City. My stepfather was Leon Hillison. He was a funeral director in Atlantic City. My wife and I, my pet died, and she was so unhappy when that happened that we found her a job bathing dogs. She came home singing and happy and found what she loved to do. I used to own Atlantic City Casino Supply, and I got behind her. I was her first bather on Dorset Avenue in Ventnor. And that was 1988. We bought the pet salon and been in business since then. It's 31 years. I got tired of seeing her being bitten and scratched and struggling with the pets. So I invented her a little gizmo that became very popular. Right now it's on every table in Petco, PetSmart, Pet Supermarket, Pet Value, and 45,000 mom and pop groomers around the world. Over 1 million dogs a day are humanely groomed on it. There have been over 2 billion groomings without one claim of injury to a pet or a groomer. It usually reduces the struggle that a groomer has, and it also makes them more money because they can groom more dogs, they can groom them hands-free. Most groomers, I'd say 80 to 90%, are not accomplished. It's a job, and most of them think that to be dominant you need to be aggressive. And that's not the case. You need to be confident because the pet smells your confidence. So this little gizmo, this little widget called the Groomer's Helper is a standard in the industry. I've been given the highest awards in the pet industry for outstanding contribution to the industry by an individual or an organization, by a number of groups. I am one of the premium sponsors of our groom team, our USA groom team, and we are the world champions. I sponsor the National Dog Grooming Association of America. I could go on and on and on.
We accept your credentials.
Okay.
Let's talk,
Go ahead.
before we get into the widgets and how you did it, let's talk a little bit about the business. We're currently located at 3 South Franklin Avenue.
Correct.
Talk a little bit about what goes on at 3 South Franklin.
Well, 3 South Franklin Avenue is the pet salon, and we'll bring in dogs and cats and bathe them and give them their haircuts and groom them. And we do something for the area that is health-based because we kill fleas and ticks. Ticks are disease-borne parasites, and New Jersey happens to be the number 7th state in the United States for fleas and ticks, number 9 for Lyme disease. In Atlantic County alone, there's been over 1,800 recorded cases of Lyme disease, but they think there's been 18,000 cases that are unreported. So we take care of that disease vector. People come from all over the country to come to Atlantic City. They bring their pets, and their pets bring the parasites with them. So our function is to kill those parasites. Also, for many years, the city of Margate asked us if they had an emergency would we consider using our facility to house pets that were lost or in trouble during a hurricane? And absolutely, we offer that to the city.
Talk about number of employees that you have during the winter, number of employees that you have during the summer.
During the winter at the pet salon, you'll have 4 employees. During the summer, you'll have 8 employees.
Parking spaces that you had on site at Franklin Avenue.
Franklin Avenue, they allow us to park in their parking lot. We have 3 spaces.
Go to your other business at 8510. Now let's talk a little bit about what goes on there.
So I invented this little gizmo and made it in the back of the pet salon until we just had no more room in the back of the pet salon to assemble them. So we had to find another place, and we found this place, and then we're hit by Hurricane Sandy. And that's, I do believe it was a Chinese restaurant at one time.
It was Kramer's, remember?
It was Kramer's, right. That's right. And so we're in there. I think it might be 1,400 square feet. And we have one room where we do the what I call the dirty work, or where we have we buff the product. And then we have one room that's called the clean room, where we have 5 computerized sewing machines where we make the only patented grooming loop in the world, safety grooming loop. And we put those things together there. We have a web page. We're on Amazon. We're on eBay. And we sell those products to professional groomers around the world. And we also have distributors around the world.
Let's talk about the product. Did you bring one tonight?
I did. I absolutely did. So the product is called the Groomer's Helper. And
So
this
there's
is
no
it.
retail there?
No retail. At the grooming shop, there's retail.
Right.
We sell brushes and combs and flea
I meant this
shampoo.
device.
This device, no. This is B2B.
Yeah, we have no walk-up trade
Correct.
coming to the building.
Correct. And so what I've done is I've showed you the finished product right here, and then these are all the parts that we assemble into the finished product. I'd like to pass that around if you'd like to see it.
Sure.
Okay?
Chuck, I'll get it.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So we're gonna have the grooming salon on the ground floor.
Yes, sir.
So the second, and are you relocating the offices that are on Ventnor Avenue to this location?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you're gonna have the offices, you're gonna have the grooming salon, and then all this other space is just gonna be for assembling these things?
Basically, assembly and storage. The extra 1,100 square foot of storage is just going to be storage. That we're trying to move from Joe Tozzi's building, which is 1 South Granville, and bring that storage to the same building.
Is the storage, so is that, where's the storage gonna be?
The storage is proposed on the expansion on the sides.
Second and third?
Brian, I'm going to ask you to speak into this microphone.
Okay.
And Chuck can
I'm gonna call that,
I'm going to ask Craig, the storage part, is that second and third floor?
Well, at this point, it's not been determined, at this point, we've not.
I need it recorded.
At this point, Chuck and I have not actually worked out where the equipment goes and what specific storage would be stored in each of the areas.
Right.
You know, but that'll be part of, when we actually go through the process of, here the products, the more raw product comes in, and here the buffing takes place, and over here the assembly, the packaging, and then out the door kind of
Right.
thing.
So how many people are gonna be, forget about the salon, how many people will be involved in the?
I have 8 people involved in the assembly
Okay.
and the shipping. And then we have 4 people who are involved in bookkeeping, order taking.
Okay.
And I just want to show you guys something. There are 100,000 units out there that say Margate, New Jersey on them. I don't know if I have to pay you a royalty or not, but it shows the world where the Groomer's Helper came from.
Okay.
Brian, I'm gonna call that an Exhibit A1, the groomer's helper.
That's fine.
Assembled and with the parts.
Parts.
Can I ask one? You're gonna bring your Ventnor people to Margate
You're going to close down Ventnor and move to Margate? We are not in Ventnor, we're all in Margate.
Ventnor Avenue.
What was the other one? Oh, yes, Ventnor Avenue, yes.
Okay,
Yes, we're trying to bring everybody under one roof.
It's at Lancaster Avenue.
So when people drop off their dogs to get groomed, I mean, they just drop them off.
2 minutes.
Right?
Yeah, because most of them are not new customers, they're existing. We're on third generation dogs. They know the drill. They come in, they give us the dog, and they go.
Right,
And the dogs are also scheduled by appointment.
yeah.
Absolutely.
The employees that you have for the 8510, how many have cars? How do they get to your work right now currently?
I think 4 have cars, and the rest of them live in the area or take public transportation.
Hours of operation. Let's start with pet salon downstairs.
8:30 to 5.
Is that all year round?
That's all year round, except we are a seasonal town, so in the winter, we lose employees, we lose part-time employees, and we're off on Wednesdays, so we'll only open 5 days a week. But Saturday is a very busy day because a lot of people are off on Saturday, and that's when they want their dogs groomed. It's more convenient for them.
Your upstairs business, the 8510 business that we're moving over.
8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday, no Saturday, no Sunday.
So on Saturday, when you're busy downstairs with pet salon, there's nothing going on upstairs.
Correct,
No work at all for either party on Sundays.
correct,
And during the winter time, pet salon downstairs closed on Wednesdays.
correct.
You also had talked about inventory.
Yes,
You have that stored currently in another location.
correct, 1 South Granville Avenue.
And before that, it was at the synagogue.
Before that, it was across the street at the synagogue, yes.
So the object is to move pet salon, the assembly, the inventory, all to one location.
Correct.
Out of the pet salon, you've had 3 on-site parking spaces
Correct.
on what you would call a busy street.
I think it's the busiest street in Margate. It's the post office street.
Have you had any problems with your employees or anybody else finding a parking spot during those years?
Not at all.
To you, 9 spots is a godsend?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You have some people who will now be able to walk to work?
Absolutely. That are walking to work now.
What other little products do you ship out of your location?
I invented a no-choke control lead that won the awards at the Mandalay Bay Super Zoo. Right now, when you go to a groomer or Petco or PetSmart, if you don't have a leash, they put a control lead on you, which is a slip lead, and it chokes. So I invented a no-choke slip lead, and PetSmart has bought right now close to 60,000 of them. We came up with a product that when they clip the dog's nails, it doesn't sting them like Styptic. PetSmart dropped all of their Styptic and bought a tremendous amount, and they're currently reordering that product. Anything for the safety and efficiency of professional groomers and the profitability of professional groomers we handle. We have the #1 brush line for professional groomers in the world, and it's again, we're looking to take on any like products that would enhance the safety, efficiency, and profitability of professional groomers.
I don't have any other questions, Mr. Simons. I'm going to open up to you.
Hours of operation?
I think I'll go through it again. The
All right.
pet salon is 8:30 to 5, Monday through Saturday, off during the summer on Wednesday. Off during the winter on Wednesday. The upstairs operation is 8:30 to 5, Monday through Friday, off Saturday. Both places are off Saturday and Sunday.
Chuck, are you closed on Wednesday during the summer also?
No.
No, okay.
Mr. Manis, I guess at this point in time, I would ask for the board to make a determination before I bring up the professionals as to whether they think this, turning into that little package, constitutes a use variance where it would be assembly, light manufacturing, that type of a thing, or whether, as Roger had put in his report, it's compatible to putting a grill together or a bicycle together, which probably has more moving parts than we do.
I missed something in the beginning. Do you sell them at the store, or you don't sell them at the store?
Yes, if somebody, the local groomers will come to the shop and they'll buy a loop or they'll buy a groomer's helper if they need it. Yes, absolutely.
So they will be available for retail sale.
Well, they're not retail sales, again, it's B2B. And, but we do sell other retail items.
This
Yes.
item,
This item, if somebody wants one, it's available in the store.
Right.
The brushes are available in the store.
we're only talking about this item here, the
Yes.
one you're manufacturing?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
And I forgot to note at the beginning, whether it's a use variance or not, the two members who wouldn't participate if it were a use variance, they're not here. We only have 7 members, so the board makeup's fine
Right.
regardless of which way
Correct.
we go.
So I just didn't know what the board's intention was with coming with testimony from Mr. Dothe and Mr. Barnhart, whether you wanted me to go into use variance testimony, that type of thing, and.
So you don't have any equipment, you're just putting these together by hand pretty much, right?
No, we do have a couple drill presses. We do have what is called a rivet machine that we put the rivet in with. We have a bender, like you would see in a muffler shop, a small item. We'll take this straight piece of tubing and we'll bend it and we'll put the hook on it. These are called grooming arms. We have a couple buffing machines that will actually bring the luster up on the items. A couple hand grinders. So again, that was what we called the dirty room. And
So-
then the clean room is where we actually have the sewing machines.
So you're using basic tools to put items that are already pre-manufactured in.
Basically,
You're just
yes.
putting them together.
Yes. I guess you say we're refurbishing them. Not refurbishing, but furbishing. Is if we got knives in and we went ahead and put the hilt on and then we went ahead and buffed them up. Now, that's basically it.
So you don't have conveyor belts with robots and all that?
No.
Just check.
That's right.
No smokestacks and,
Most all the work's done by hand. All the work is done by hand.
I think the board should discuss whether they feel that this is a use variance or not. I'm looking in, the permitted uses are retail sales, retail services as an accessory use. In my opinion, it kind of qualifies as a retail sales. The office space is permitted, but specifically not listed as assembly. But you go to Colmar, they assemble grills. You go to the bike shop, they put bikes together.
I agree.
They have tools. At the marina use, I mean,
I don't see a conflict.
I don't,
I don't either.
I don't, my opinion is we don't need a use variance.
I agree.
Okay,
I think I've heard more than a consensus that, do we need-
I'll proceed with.
do we need to take a vote for that?
I think we should.
Okay, go
We should
ahead.
at least have a some consensus on the record, so, yeah, might as well just take a vote.
Okay.
Okay,
To the extent that,
may I have a motion?
Well, he's going
I
to
think
tell
it
us
would
what
just
he
be a
wants to say.
motion that the board determines that a use variance is not required, and if you could say whether you agree with that or disagree with that. If you agree with that, no use variance is required. So that, someone can make that motion in a second.
I make that motion.
I'll second.
Clem Wozleski,
I do not think a use variance is required.
Rich Patterson,
I agree.
Mike Cristaldi,
I agree.
Margaret Gubernalty,
I agree.
Craig Palmisano,
I disagree.
Stephen Giuseppe,
I agree.
and Mike Richmond.
I agree.
Okay, so it is considered not a use variance.
I'll then call Mr. Dothe, who can walk you through the architecturals. Given this,
Please.
Craig, why don't you describe the existing site and then what your proposal is from an architectural point of view?
This is Ventnor Avenue on the right-hand side of the dwelling and Monroe. Presently, there's a curb cut here on Ventnor Avenue and a curb cut here on Monroe Avenue. Traffic comes in, they park on the first floor, basically almost all at grade. Well, obviously the parking's all at grade, but the entire area around here is parking and vehicle circulation. There's presently some planters across the front with the grade here where the auto goes in. They park in the front yard setback across here, 2 cars, plus 2 slightly underneath the building, and then the rest of them in the backyard. There's 1 out, so if you came in on the site, you have to come in through Ventnor Avenue, and everybody leaves out Monroe. You're not allowed to exit out on Ventnor, you're not allowed to enter on Monroe. At least there's, directional signage that indicates that. In my opinion, this is a very iconic building. I've always thought this was a really sharp-looking building, and the idea of renovating it and expanding it it's a fun project, because it's like we want to bring step planters, make them a little higher, that sort of thing, to help elevate the landscaping to. It's a rather stark building because it's all white with red awnings, and that's pretty much all the color it has. It has some glass block with lots of ribbon windows, so it looks, it's a pretty strong Art Deco type of look. It's got a stair in the front with a curve. You walk up on the left-hand side, you go into a small lobby. There's an existing elevator and the stair right there. The dark color right here is the building above, so if you drive through here, you actually literally see the underside of the building that you just drove under. And there's a stair on this right-hand side.
Craig, is that existing?
That was, yeah.
That was, I tried to describe the existing conditions. I'm going to describe then after that what we propose to change about it.
Mr. Master, you want to mark that?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying, A2.
A2 existing condition rendered.
Okay, thank you.
And it's the same drawing you have with your packet.
This would be A3. It's an existing condition. It's the floor plans that he turned in with a little color on them.
Right. This drawing right here is partially the existing conditions and partially what we propose to do to the building. They're both together that way, but they're colorized to indicate the differences between the existing and the proposed expansion. This drawing is architectural drawing A2. You have it in the packet. The only thing I've added to this is an image of the sign. So, and I'll get into that too. The second floor and third floor, and then there's a roof plan. On the second floor, there's an existing area right here that's all sort of in gray. And then these are the 2 additions right across here. It's a rather small addition. It's a lot of work for a small area. It's 358 square feet, which is on the second floor, jutting it out to be even with the stair tower, so that it's, and that's in conformance, by the way, the second floor. It juts out another 8 feet and 7 foot 9 inches.
Is that Ventnor Avenue going
Yeah,
north and south?
This is Ventnor Avenue
Okay,
right here.
got it, okay.
Okay, so what we do is we add a total of 358 square feet. And like I said earlier, we haven't designed how this all lays out in terms of the actual product itself. But this is the area where the product will be assembled. The third floor, we're adding more square foot, which is 677 square feet. We're matching the second floor line of the wall across, and then across the back, we're matching the second floor rear wall, which is that's a conforming rear yard setback across there. And then there's a roof plan. The sign itself, I'm going to show on the site plan the location of the sign. The sign is located right here next to the entry, and it's a freestanding sign, which is not allowed to be built in Margate. It's an existing freestanding sign. It's a two-sided sign, so in its interior lit, it faces southbound as well as northbound traffic. The proposed addition that we're putting out there will obscure the one side of it, so the sign will only be visible to northbound traffic.
Longport dog owners.
So anybody heading south has to kind of find their way. The images of the exterior, very similar to what's already there. Taking the existing awnings off and replacing the existing awnings with new red awnings. This is that iconic stair and elevator tower. This is the glass block all facing towards Ventnor. None of that changes. This whole facade stays exactly the same. This is the area of the pet salon that is excuse me, infilling the underside of the building and projecting forward, and then a raised planter across the front with the landscaping on top. So the landscaping, is actually more visible to the cars as you're driving by. This is the image from Monroe Avenue looking back, and you can see the side of this piece right here is this area right here. So that's a new portion, which would be the side of the pet salon. And then there's an addition across the back here, which you can see from this image. Across the back, again, just duplicating the windows that were already there, basically just moving them straight out so that the look of the building is maintained. And across this is the rear side.
Planners were to serve a second purpose.
Yeah, this is a very low area, so what happens is across the, in the street in the gutter, water will accumulate during a major storm. Cars go by and they start splashing that water pretty hard. So the concept is that the raised planter serves also as a breakwater, so when the water goes, towards the building, it's not washing out the planter and hitting the building.
I'm going to have Mr. Barnhart walk you through some of the variance relief that we're asking. And then if you have any questions of Mr. Dothay from an architectural point of view or Mr. Barnhart, we can jump in.
And I'll call the renderings A4 rendered elevations.
That's fine.
I don't know how to fix it.
Is it this mic or is it that?
It's that.
Am I just screen through this to turn it off? Alright. Maybe it's not. Okay,
Go ahead, walk them through it. You've been
So-
sworn in, you've been qualified, so we're good to go.
you heard a litany of testimony already with regard to what the proposed use is in the building, so I'm not gonna head in that direction. But this is an interesting project because you have a very prominent commercial building in the city of Margate, right here on the corner of Monroe and Ventnor Avenue, that has recently struggled. They've had trouble with tenants. There's been some ins and outs of who's been there. The building, as you can see, is not being very well maintained at the moment. So we're excited for our client in that he has three businesses, or he has more than three businesses actually technically, but he has three different locations within the city of Margate that he's been operating very successfully. And he's been looking and looking and looking for a location where he can bring his entire operation together. And this building suits him perfectly with the modifications that are being requested this evening. So, excuse me. So, as was already described, there is an expansion to the building proposed and some modifications to the site improvements. I'll talk about the building expansions first, and I tried to color code the site plan to give you a kind of a clear understanding of what is happening here. As Craig pointed out, the existing building, which is approximately a little over 4,700, actually 4,270 square feet approximately in building area, is the gray shaded shape that you see here on the plan. The building sits approximately in the middle of the site. There are currently a total of 15 parking spaces on the ground level below the building. You see this is the vertical transportation, the elevator, or I'm sorry, the stair tower core that juts out to the 2.2 foot side yard setback. There is currently access off of Ventnor Avenue into the site and then exiting onto Monroe Avenue. The proposal is to modify the building, to renovate the building, and to expand the building in a couple of different locations as Craig described. But I want to show it to you in site plan view because it's what creates the variances that we're asking for this evening. The first piece of this puzzle is that on the ground level, that we're proposing to create a storefront, a one-story storefront appearance for the grooming operation. That would be down at the grade. As you were walking along Ventnor Avenue, you'd be looking right into that storefront, into the pet groomer, similar to any of the other commercial storefront areas that you have along Ventnor Avenue. That portion of that one story is that I'll call that orange shaded area that will be at one level. That one story portion creates two of the setback variances. It creates the front yard setback variance. We're proposing it to be at the front property line, as any commercial storefront typically is along Ventnor Avenue, or most of them are, I should say. And then we're proposing to maintain the existing side yard of the stair core at 2.2 feet. Again, that is just for that orange shaded area, and it's from a point that is from the ground, approximately 10 feet. Craig has the specific dimensions, but approximately 10 feet above the ground. So that's the area in question that creates both the front yard and the side yard variances. The rest of the expansions that Craig described on the second level and the third level are all fully compliant with regard to setback. The minimum side yard setback is 5 feet. Those second and third level expansions are proposed at 6.5 feet. Along the rear of the building, we are actually technically at the side. The expansions in that area are in excess of 22 feet. So it's that 10-foot high orange area that I show here that wraps the corner of the building that is what creates those two setback variances. And frankly, that's what also creates the building coverage variance, because that's where we're really increasing the building footprint. So how do we justify those three variances? Well, in my opinion as a planner, this is a case of a classic C2 type of scenario where the benefits of the deviation substantially outweigh any of the potential detriments. The benefits being that the building was going to be cleaned up, remodeled, the landscaping redone, the exterior skin redone, new awnings, as you heard Craig describe, and a beautification of the site just in general. We are taking 3 different locations within the city of Margate that are operating in Margate now. The employees are in Margate now, albeit they're in different locations. We're consolidating them onto one site, essentially creating less trips between the sites that our client has to make, when he has to go pick something up at one store or go check on the other location. That all now comes to one site and helps consolidate, which promotes free flow of traffic, which, as you know, is the purpose of zoning. And I think most importantly, this is a project that, Margate doesn't get to see a lot of, where we have a commercial operation, there's no residential proposed, we have a specific end user who is the person that is purchasing the building, intending to utilize it for his business, and he recognizes that while he's asking for some variances, the parking, and I'll get into that in a moment, specifically suits the needs of how his operation functions, which is why we are comfortable that reducing the site from 15 spaces down to 9 spaces still functionally works for the Simons as the operation is proposed. So for all those reasons, we believe that the positive criteria is established for the C variance. With regard to the negative criteria, is there a substantial detriment to the public good? I would argue that if you look at the compatibility of the neighborhood, if you go down Ventnor Avenue, but for the town or the duplex next door to us, the next 2 buildings on our block heading to the north, those properties are on the front property line. If you go to the south across Monroe Avenue, you have the Horizon Eye Care building. I didn't measure the front yard setback, but I compared it to where our property line is. It's only a couple feet off the front property line. It is.
You got 9 feet
Not from the front property line.
from sidewalk.
From the sidewalk, I agree. You have wide sidewalks on Ventnor Avenue, though. So by my estimation, it's probably about 4 or 5 feet off the front property line, somewhere in that range. So we are consistent, although we are deviating with the front yard setback, we are very consistent with the development, we believe, along this portion of Ventnor Avenue. And for that reason, we believe there is no substantial detriment to the public good. With
Did you
regard
say
to
the building on the Longport, across the street on the Longport side, that's on the property line?
building
That big, that
across
giant
the
building?
street on the Longport side?
Horizon.
Horizon.
Yeah.
Horizon Eye Care?
Yeah.
That's not right on the line, but I'm gonna say it's probably, my estimation was about 4 feet off the
Got it,
property
okay.
line.
I didn't know which property you were.
Yeah, that's the Horizon Eye Care building. Yeah, it's not, definitely not 9 feet, it's something much less than that. Okay. With regard to the side yard setback, as I mentioned, the existing side yard of that stair tower is 2.2 feet. So as you were standing on Ventnor Avenue, look back, that is the air, light, and open space that exists now for those multiple levels. We're proposing to follow that 2.2 foot line, but again, keep in mind, it's only at the first level. The way that Craig designed it was to make certain that he's not creating an impact to the neighboring property with regard to the building structure, because it is only 10 feet high, so it's only at the garage level of that adjacent duplex building that we are at that setback. And then you've got the multiple levels of the building above, where our building, which is adjacent to that building, is compliant at those upper levels.
If this is a ground level, does it have to be built special for floods? Is there?
Yes, it's a commercial space, so it is permitted to be dry flood-proof construction, as opposed to residential space, which you hear about more often.
Right.
Where you can't dry flood-proof, you have to elevate.
So this is flood-proofed up to,
This has to be flood-proof up to elevation 9 for.
BFE plus 1.
okay,
+1, okay.
all right.
So, yeah, so
Got
this
it.
is a dry flood-proof type of construction.
Is it now or it will be?
It will be. The existing, the other building is existing, there's a low floor that I guess technically would be considered just your entry area, so that would be.
Oh, there is
okay.
nothing on the ground
No,
floor,
right
just
now,
parking?
right now it's
All right.
concrete parking,
Got it.
correct, correct. But that's allowed to go down to the ground level, correct. So I believe the current building is compliant, and the new space will be code compliant, but it will be dry flood-proof construction. All right, so with respect to parking, as was mentioned, the requirement, if by definition of the ordinance is, as Roger calculates, I think was 25 spaces. But you heard Mr. Simons explain his operation, and, this is, we all agree that it's a permitted use in the zone, but it is a little bit of a different type of use than what you're used to as a standard retail, which is, you have in your ordinance, you either have office space, which is 1 per 300 square feet, or retail and other similar uses, which is 1 per 200. They're basically your two requirements for parking, which generates a high parking calculation with the size of this building. The way, as you heard Mr. Simons explain, he has nowhere near that type of parking need for his uses. He has approximately 14 employees at the peak, and it goes down to something less than that in the wintertime. Half of them don't drive. He only has 6 or 7 cars that are coming at any one time to the site. And the operation for the pet groomer is just pick up and drop off. They're there for 2, 3, 5 minutes at a time. And based on his experience in doing this for so long in Margate, he only needs maybe 1 spot, maybe 2 spots for that. And what I did want to also point out is we do plan to seek with the county a request to allow for a drop-off and pickup space along Ventnor Avenue. What we've looked at is, and I've already spoken to the county planner about this, and he suggested that, we show it as part of our county site plan application. It is a county road, they have jurisdiction, but he said that we do need, I'll call it a recommendation that Margate would support this type of drop-off zone on Ventnor Avenue, because
Like a 15-minute parking?
Correct. So what we're able to do, which, because we're closing an existing driveway on Ventnor Avenue, there's no loss of on-street parking as a result of this. There's an existing parking space which sits approximately where I'm identifying with my finger here. Legally, you can't park within 25 feet of a corner. That leaves us approximately 27 feet of space where that existing driveway is. That once we close that driveway, we would have an opportunity to use that, which we think will be an ideal location for drop-off and pickup for the grooming facility, with no loss of on-street parking. and then further helps to make certain that there is not issues with regard to parking on the site. Yes?
We're not gaining in parking.
You would not be gaining a parking space, correct?
Can we say that that parking's only from 8 to 5? No parking?
I'm sorry?
Drop-off zones like from 8 to 5 and then the rest of,
Oh, that's,
because of other businesses?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I think that's a good
The
idea.
answer is
That'd be
yes, 8 to
Yeah.
5, you're correct. After that, if somebody wants to pull in and park, absolutely.
The other thing I want to point out with regard to parking and why we believe that although appears as though we have a large deviation, we believe that this operation works, is that, your peak times of parking in this town is during the weekends. Neither of the operations, neither the pet groomer or the rest of the facility is open at all on Sundays, and only the pet groomer is open on Saturdays. So you don't have trips coming to and from that entire building other than the pet groomer on Saturdays, and Sundays the place is completely quiet, which helps with any potential burden on street parking, because on the weekends this is a much lesser operation.
Would it hurt to have a 15-minute parking as one of the 9?
Inside? You
Yeah.
mean on the site?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're suggesting that we sign one to keep people from parking in there and staying there all day, like,
Well, I didn't know if you have 9 spots you expect to use yourself, or if you have one there that if there's not, because people on the street use those 15-minute spots and stay there for hours. I mean, if you had one in there that people knew they could go in right on the inside and park.
right.
Would that be a problem?
No,
I'm
I
not
don't
saying you have to do it, I'm asking if that would be a
I
problem.
don't see it would be a problem at all, no. It's probably a good suggestion.
I'm ready to speak into a mic here.
I really don't think it's going to be a problem because, again, people that are coming to the pet salon are coming to drop off their pets.
Well, that's what I mean, that
and
gives them a
leave,
spot to
yes.
do it, so the county one and one inside.
Right, right. It'd be no problem there. And in fact, I would love to see a handicap space in there.
Okay. I think I've touched on all the variances. From a site plan standpoint, although there's a lot of modification going on, it actually lays out relatively nicely. We are eliminating one space for the purpose of having a two-way driveway on Monroe Avenue. The rest of the parking lays out how it is now, and basically what happens is the 6 spaces in total that we're losing are to create the ground floor space for the salon, and then the one loss of space for the driveway entrance. As I mentioned, the end result is 9 parking spaces. Trash and recyclables are currently kept in a dumpster at this location against the side property line here, and there is no, I think it's been like that for years, there's no change to that proposed as part of this application. And based on the cans that were there, it appears as though they're using a private hauler, which I think is required of a commercial site of this character. That really is the extent of my testimony, I believe.
I was going to jump in with Remington and Vernick on the site plan.
Oh, yes.
You want to talk a little bit on waivers, what we're looking for, to run through it?
Yeah, sure. We've reviewed Remington Vernick's letter that was issued. We would like to request waivers from some things that we believe are not applicable to this project. If you go under item 1, section, or item, it says item 1. Item 1, review, section A, items 5 through 11 are essentially all existing conditions, and we believe that they're really not applicable to this site. We're not changing the stormwater management. We're under 5,000 square feet of disturbance. I mean, I can go through each one individually, but we would like to request those waivers. And everything else in the Remington and Vernick report, we can, we can address.
I don't have any other questions of Mr. Barnhart. I would, again, open up to the board.
Mr. Dothe, could you tell me how wide the planter is on the front? Is it 4 feet? From the edge of the sidewalk inward 4 feet?
I'm not going to bring the scale.
I know, that's good.
I don't know the scale. First night. Figured it didn't need it.
Figured Clem could lend you one. He probably carries these on.
Yes,
Got the
overall
scale?
it is.
4 feet planter.
Yes.
4-foot planter. And then you, from the edge of the sidewalk, we'll go 4 feet in, and then you'll have glass walls going up.
You know, it'll be like a
I-
stem wall, concrete stem wall.
I understand. The whole front of glass will be 4 feet from the sidewalk.
Now, yes, and you do bring up a point, because right now, there's a curb across there, and that's where the landscaping is right now.
Right.
That's on the public right of way.
So will the planter will be on the public right away,
That
correct?
is correct. That is correct.
Okay.
So the planters will be in the same position, only higher and nicer,
Wider.
Yeah, and longer
Longer.
because of that.
Wider.
cut.
wider, yeah, which pushes the building back.
So you'll need a,
4 feet from the,
We would
from
need
the
we
sidewalk.
would need a revocable license from the city.
Correct.
That's why I remember you bringing that up.
Could you pick up the red awning so I can see the front again?
And the alleyway,
I see it.
yeah, that's the glass front. And the alleyway on the right-hand side of the building
This one over
is 2 feet, 2 inches,
there. Yes,
where a requirement of 5 feet is our code, required 5 feet.
that's
And
correct.
you want to maintain 2.5, 2 feet, 2 inches down the side of the building.
Right, to line up with the stair tower that's across there?
Yes, the stair tower is about 6 to 8 feet wide, right?
Yeah.
Right,
yeah,
so that's the only protrusion into that 2-foot 2 zone
That's
from the
correct.
5 foot. But you're gonna make the whole thing 2-foot 2.
It's existing 2.2, I think.
It's only 6 feet. to
Yeah, just
7
one
feet.
6-foot area.
He's
Right,
saying
it's
only-
one little area. Now it's gonna be the whole area to the front of the building,
Right.
next door to that duplex that's there,
That's correct.
correct? Okay. Only one floor. I understand that too.
And that's his garage right there.
And the front is coming out, you're coming out to a 0 setback requirement,
Yes.
and we require 10 feet. 10.
Yeah.
10, and you want 0 on that, on the whole front. Okay.
Anything else from the board? Anyone from the public like to comment? Public portion is closed.
let's talk about the ADA space that Mr. Simons mentioned. None are proposed?
At the present time, none are proposed.
I was looking at the plans, perhaps spaces 8 and 9 should be converted to a van accessible space? It would have to be closest to the entryway.
Yeah, yes. We could, yeah, we don't have enough width to make this one extra wide because it's a little projection. So these two right here probably make the most sense.
It would be easier to maneuver for one space in there versus the 2 also. So the variance would be for 8 spaces versus 9.
I got a question. Are we required to have an ADA spot?
Technically speaking, I think it's, what is it, 20% of the construction dollars you spend on the building have to be spent towards handicap improvements.
Right.
So presently, you know, how do you go about that? There's an elevator, there's access to the front door. So you have like elevator, access to the front door, parking. Those are like 3.
My reasoning here is, if we're not required to have an ADA parking spot, we don't need it to be 20 feet wide.
That is true. Every one of these parking spaces are like 8, so it's like, if we wanted to put it, it's also supposed to be closest to the front door.
Right.
However, there is no parking spaces close to the front door. Each and every person would have to come out the in or out here, and then come down the sidewalk to get to the front door.
But if we have a 10-foot spot and we marked it handicapped,
Right?
are they gonna come down on us and say this thing doesn't,
The state,
if we're not required to have it now?
yeah, the space is 8 feet, and I think 5 foot is the aisle.
Right.
Okay, so it's a total of 13. So that kind of wipes out the usefulness of the space next to it. The second part of that is, there has to be an accessible roof. Now, what I had said before was that they would have to be going through here where the cars are coming and going, and that's frowned upon as well. So if we put it right here, what we could do, because this door swing shouldn't be in that parking space either.
Right.
So we would be basically taking this space here, then we would strike and then cut through the curbing right here to bring the handicapped person out all on hard surface. Once when they're on the sidewalk, they're okay. That keeps them away from the in and out.
I wasn't trying to make you get a parking space, I'm just saying, if we're not required and we mark one that's a little bit the wrong size, do we get penalized?
If it is not the right size, it doesn't exist.
There you go.
You're gonna get an activist coming and saying it's not right, and even if it is right, you're gonna create problems.
And there's no variation when it comes to handicap
Yeah.
requirements.
Okay, so we're saying that we're not gonna have any handicaps.
Now we're down to 8 spaces.
Well, are we or aren't we gonna have any handicaps?
If it's not required, why not have it? Is that a problem?
No.
Well, I'd rather see the spot, extra spot. Yeah.
And the spaces do not prohibit somebody who's handicapped from using it, so. It's just not a designated spot.
Yeah. Just leave it out, but leave the,
Subject to the construction official review.
I would like to make it subject to the construction
Yes.
department, because we could find ourselves in a situation where it's then required and we don't necessarily would have to come back for it.
well, if it's not required, then can we make it a condition that you put the 15-minute parking as one of the 9 spaces?
Oh, absolutely.
If it's not required. If it is required, I would take that away because you're taking away too many spaces.
Mr.
Then
Pa-
the resolution, I think that'd be great.
Okay.
Palmisano, unhook your arms for a second. Go ahead, Mr. Barnhart.
So, understanding Mr. Palmisano's comments and what his, I think you recognize what his concern was without him actually saying it. We were just talking with our client, and
Can you talk into a microphone, or it doesn't
do I
work?
have to?
Can he use one of those microphones?
I'm
In
trying to pick it
speaking
up.
with our client, we were just looking at what the impact would be to the salon space. And what we would like to propose is a modification tonight, hopefully to make everybody more comfortable with the request. The front yard setback is important to us for a number of reasons. It's the appearance of the building, it gives us the space we're looking for in the salon. But we can comply to that side yard setback to bring that sidewall. The stair tower would stay where it is, 2.2 feet, but we can comply with the rest of that sidewall and bring it to the 5-foot dimension.
How many feet are you losing?
2.8.
2.7, 2.8 feet. So it takes about 100 square feet out of the salon.
I was a fireman. 2 feet 2 is a little tight in the alleyway.
He was a
You
chief.
don't want to be climbing to the 3rd floor. Right.
So are we all set?
We're all set.
Does that variance go away, the side yard setback?
The side yard setback would go away, the front yard setback we're asking to remain. And the coverage,
The 2.2 stayed as an existing non-conformity, I guess, for the stair tower.
Is it reduced, are you reducing the building coverage a little bit? Yeah.
But it's still more than,
yeah,
It's still more than,
Yeah.
it's still reduced.
yes.
right.
Right. But you're not, it's an existing nonconformity, but it's not a variance because you're not expanding on the side yard setback.
Correct.
Correct.
And what do we need a revocable license for from the city?
Well, I don't know if,
I don't think you do.
The landscaping and the city property?
It's a county right away, though, so I don't.
County right away.
I don't think we do need a license from the city. I think we need to obtain that license from the county.
Is there an existing license, you just take it over, or you would have to get it again?
I think that the planners that are there, that are in the right of way now, just
just were there from Title Company of Jersey 25, 30 years ago.
They just might have been approved as part of the site.
Yeah,
It
good.
could have been, yeah, but, today when you bring a new application to the county for site plan approval, they will pick up on that, they will require you to obtain what they call a hold harmless agreement.
All right, and just for clarification for the parking, are we at 8 spaces or at 9?
9, unless the construction code official determines that one ADA space is required, then it would be 8.
Okay. And if it is 9, they'll make one of them a 15-minute spot, one of the 9.
Correct.
And we would also be looking for, God,
A recommendation.
a recommendation so we can take it to the county, that we could put the one pickup, drop-off, 15-minute on Ventnor Avenue,
And that's where you're going to close the curb cut, right?
close the curb cut.
That's an ideal spot for that.
Clem, go ahead, you had a question?
Craig had a problem with the setback on the sides, which you addressed. I have the same problem with the setback in the front. Coming out to the property line is, as far as I'm concerned, just not acceptable. I think you should be back, maybe not the whole 10 feet, but at least as far as the, what'd you call it, Verizon building, John?
It's a Horizon Eye Care.
Verizon? Because it's a very prominent building, one of the nicest buildings in town, actually. And a while back, our chairman had a problem with a commercial property, or a residential property on the same corner in the next block, I think, as far as its appearance on Ventnor Avenue.
Oh, across from the Dairy Queen bar, yeah.
Yeah, and the architect for that project changed the facade to address it. And I think we have the same problem here.
We have a problem moving that front yard back, and comparing it to Horizon. Our front yard setback is only at that one story. You look at the Horizon next door, that's 3 floors.
Sure.
3 floors, 4 feet up. So we're 1 floor up, and then we're back. And I mean, giving up the side yard and giving up the front yard, you know,
Well, you're not giving them up, you don't have them in the first place.
I understand that, but we're not buying, we haven't bought the building yet. So I mean, the issue becomes, we don't have the space inside then, giving up the 100 square feet here and giving up the front another 3 or 4 feet or 5 feet on the front to giving it up. At that point in time, you know, the pet salon might as well stay where it is.
Well, you know the land use a little better than I do, but that doesn't seem to me to be a justification under the law for the variance.
Well, we think Mr. Barnhart's testimony has shown that the benefits of the of the aesthetic improvements and things like that do justify that variance.
I don't think his explanation of the benefits are address this particular item. They address the entire project. If this had a 5-foot setback, I don't think it would change any of John's arguments.
I can't, give me 30 seconds, but I just don't think we can give up
When we look,
the front.
Mr. Bonner, when we look at the sight line north, the old motels come out to 3 feet from the sidewalk. They're right on the property
Right.
line too. There's a motel that's right next to it, two doors down.
2 doors down.
Yes, and that's brought out to the front. If that building is demolished, that won't be built back after the property line.
Once again, it depends on, most retail stores aren't set back. I mean, you're sitting on a property, when you walk in your front door to those restaurants,
about that.
you're sitting, they're on a property line.
Restaurants and such, yes.
Yeah.
A lot of them, yeah, you're
And even
right.
the retail stores, when you go down. You go down, you go across the street on Washington Avenue right here. The whole strip of stores is 0.
Are you going to change it, Mr. Callahan?
Front yard?
Yeah.
What is the,
No, we're not.
Okay.
so Clem, why do you have a problem with it, like,
Well, it's over. They're not going to change it. They
Okay.
can move on.
okay. I'm good with that.
All right, so would you read the motion, please?
considered.
Everything needs to be on the record, so everyone please stop at this moment. He's going to read the motion.
This is considered a major site plan, correct?
Yes, major. Preliminary and final.
All right. Are we ready?
Enough, board, quiet.
All right, someone needs to make a motion for preliminary and final major site plan approval together with the following C variances. Front yard setback to Ventnor Avenue of 0 feet where 10 feet is required. Building coverage was 61.1% as proposed, but I think that's now gone down a little bit, but it's still over the 50% that's permitted, so building coverage variance, and we'll put as a condition, they'll get us an exact calculation of what that is. A parking variance of either 8 or 9 spaces where 25 is required. It's 8 if the construction official determines an ADA space is required, because then they're gonna combine 2 spaces into 1, spaces 8 and 9, I believe, into 1, to make that 80 space, or whatever the construction official determines, they're gonna combine 2 into 1. Otherwise, if it's not required, the parking variance is for 9 spaces, and in that case, 1 will be designated a 15-minute spot. So those are 2 of the conditions, but before I get to the other ones, there's also the waivers are from the submission of an application checklist, and then items 5 through 11 under 1A in the Remington and Vernick report. The other conditions will be that the applicant will comply with all representations it made during the course of the hearing. They'll comply with all conditions in Mr. McLaren's report and the Remington and Vernick report. They'll be subject to all other outside approvals. And the approving resolution, if it passes, will include a recommendation to the county that the board is recommending that the Ventnor Avenue curb cut, when it's closed off, becomes a 15-minute drop-off spot.
You okay with
I
that?
agree. I think that covers everything.
I hear a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
No, we already did it.
Clem Wozleski,
Well, in my opinion, the front setback is not acceptable. The lack of a front setback, a better way to put it. I think it does cause substantial detriment to the public good. I don't think it provides a benefit to the community. I think it does impair the intent and purpose of the zoning. And I see no particular benefit, and I've heard no justification for it. I'd vote against it.
Rich Patterson,
I'd like to thank the applicant for agreeing to change the side setback where Mr. Palmisano explained that there is a danger from his experience. I see no danger from the front setback. I think it being glass and only 1 story high, and also conforming to most of the business district with 0 setback, I see no problem with that. I see an abandoned building that's going to be substantially improved visually and effectively, employing people in Margate, keeping people in town year-round, and I think it's a good project. I approve this project.
Mike Cristaldi,
Rich stole about most of my words on this thing. We do not need another empty building. We don't need any more condos. They will be uglier along Ventnor Avenue than this is like you said, the kind of building is beautiful. And the locals working there, they're there all winter, keeping our restaurants, keeping our drugstore, keeping all our other stores, just keeping our businesses alive in town. The parking issue, I don't see it as an issue. The side yard setback, that was great for them to give up. Across the street, they're turning brake drums on the lathe. I mean, they're just polishing stuff. It's not, no big deal as far as I'm concerned. I don't, as far as harm to anything else, I don't see any. I agree with the application.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Margaret Gubernalty?
I like the application. I think this promotes and helps our local business people. I think it maintains the integrity of the building that is there and will only improve the building. I don't see a detriment to the neighborhood or the public good. They've complied with the side yard setback for danger issues. The front and side yard and building coverage are de minimis, in my opinion. Parking, if you've ever been in that 15 parking spots that were there, to me, were not really 15 parking spots, because I've been in and out of that building, and if we could park on the street running into that building, we parked on the street, because it's kind of a little bit like a maze in there, and Chuck is the best parking police in the city. So I know he's gonna watch that. I think it's a great project, I think it's a great building, and I approve of the application.
Craig Palmisano?
Well, I don't have a problem with some of the building structure on the rear, but I had a problem with the side, and you took care of that. But I still had a problem with the front. I'm like Clem. I just think it's protruding too much to the street. It's just, it is one story, but it's still too much. The building does need to be redone, but somebody will eventually redo it. But I can't approve this with the way it's gonna look into the front of the street. I say no.
Mike Richmond?
Okay, so a couple things. Like Rich said, most of the commercial properties in Margate are zero setback.
Can you talk into the mic, please?
Yeah, most of the commercial properties in Margate are zero setback, so I was actually kind of surprised that it wasn't the case for this building. Secondly, as far as the public good is concerned for Margate, keeping commercial in the city, which we talk about all the time, employing local people, and, you know, people that are gonna drop their dogs off, maybe instead of spitting away, they'll go across the street to, you know, the pizza place or wherever, you know. I think that's a good thing for the city. They're gonna take a building that is looking shabby and clean it up, and I just really don't see any major detriment to the city in granting the variances. The parking, I mean, they're gonna be, nobody's gonna be there at night except for maybe Chuck, and, you know, I don't see any problem with it. I'm gonna vote yes.
Stephen Giuseppe?
I'm kind of torn between this because I have to agree with these guys about the protrusion of the building. But I also think that, I also support the businesses in Margate, which I think we desperately need. So, can I abstain for this?
Yep.
Yeah.
The application passes 4-3. 4-2, I'm sorry.
We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we have
Thank you very much.
substantial business to take care of after 5 minutes. Back on. We're back in session. What?
We're on.
This is the first chance we've had in ages where we have some time. I'll try to keep it short, but it's going to be a little while. I had talked before about a tree ordinance. I talked to our newest member, who's a tree hugger, and Mike Cristaldi, about the trees that are being just clear cut. Is there any public participation before we go to new business? Public participation is closed. Steve immediately came up with some not proposal, ordinances or whatever. They were from different states. I mean, that doesn't matter. It gives us an idea. If you read there's 3 of them here, but if you just read the one that I sent out to everybody was the one he gave us. To me, that's a good basis to start. A couple changes where a canopy tree is at least 24 inches. I think that's pretty big, but
That's circumference, though. That's not-
I understand that, but that's, as I brought my exhibit here, that's 24 inches. I mean, even 18 inches would be,
Is that,
it's not diameter, it's circumference.
is that at maturity, or is that when you?
No, it's saying that's when you can't cut them down.
Oh, you can't cut
I mean, there's 18, which I would say that would be big enough not to cut down. But anyway, the other problem with the inches is, I would say, any tree that was put there to meet zoning, and like a new house with a small tree, all those should be included, that they can't be taken out. So many people say, well, it blocks my car door, and they rip the trees out right away. So, the one other thing, if you didn't read it, was there was a $1,000 fine, but then it also said there was remediation. I would say the fines have to be enough for the developers not to treat it as a cost of the building. Oh, well, we have to pay $1,000, so what?
If they paid 5,000, it wouldn't matter, would it? You know?
No, but if they have to remediate and replace it with a tree close to the same size, it's gonna cost them more to put it up than it is to take it down. So there has to be some sort of remediation that's going to replace what they took down.
That's the easiest way of doing it.
No, that's why I wanted to add that. So, we're not voting on anything tonight, and any of the things I want to talk about, we're not doing any voting tonight, but we are going to have some subcommittees, and these are the things that I came up with that we need to discuss. And I want to go over them one by one, and if anybody opposes, is for it, whatever, we can have a little bit of discussion now, and then when we have subcommittees, we have an idea of where the board stands. So that's what, we want to stop the clear cutting of trees. We want to keep as many trees as possible. If the tree's in the middle of the lot and that's where the house is going, there's nothing you can do about it. But Thurlow and Amherst, they had 6 giant trees they took down. Right across from you, they had 10 giant trees that came down. It's crazy. We thanked Freon so much because they kept their cedar trees there. I mean, it's just, we need that tree canopy. Okay, that's the tree ordinance. That's all we're discussing about the tree ordinance. Does that sound good to you?
To add on to that, I would like to, all the beach blocks, they are not required to have street trees. I would like to establish like a tree fund, a shade tree fund. Whenever a beach block gets developed, they contribute, say, $700 towards a tree fund.
Not to have, yeah, exactly.
They don't have to have trees, so they're
Right.
getting, they're getting off by not having the trees.
But it also, and again, I say that's enough for trees, but now I want, does anybody have a problem with that, or we're not, don't want to go over everything in detail, but does anybody?
Here's the only thing I got to say, and this is more of me being a builder
Right.
and being an administrative thing.
Right.
We gotta really make this public. Like, you know, everybody's gotta know about this, because I don't wanna see somebody that's not aware of the situation.
Absolutely.
A demo guy go in and, you know, and all of a sudden,
Absolutely.
he's getting fined thousands of dollars.
This will be in
So-
the Down Beach Current, everybody reads
No,
it.
no,
Well,
yeah,
that'll
right.
also be, when you take a building permit out to tear a building down, when you issue the permit, you can say, these trees can't be touched.
I think this is something that would be well publicized, and even if we have to
Well,
talk to the
and
press,
no matter
it
how
needs to
well
be
publicized it is, if somebody from out of town goes and tears something, they don't know about it.
Well, then they're gonna be
Right in Pembroke and Amherst, there was a beautiful maple tree.
Right.
Right now, there's a stump level
Right.
with the ground. No new permits, no new nothing on the house. The house was built, I just didn't like the tree there.
Right.
These exist in other townships. It's not, this
I'm
isn't
all
something
for
new,
it. I'm
right?
just saying, being a builder and things have changed and people, not everybody knows about it. And then all of a sudden, there's a problem. So we just,
Well, it has to be publicized as much as we can. We can't
So
do
like,
any more than
like you
that.
said, like, let's say I own my house and I'm not a builder, I just own this house, so how's this guy gonna know that he's not allowed to do that?
You up on that, that's a definite.
It's,
Right.
it's gonna be with
Tax and water bill.
with a tax bill, with a water bill.
Yeah, it's gotta be, that's all I care about.
Yes,
I think we-
yes, go.
My question is, so this is anywhere on your property existing tree?
Yes,
So-
anywhere on your property.
Okay, so if you got one that's in the back corner, it's been there for years,
Yes.
it's huge, and it's tearing up your concrete and everything.
You can apply for a permit to tear it down. This is not set in stone.
Okay, I'm just asking a question because there's some people that
Did you
have-
read the ordinance?
I read part of them, not all of them.
There's reasons to take trees down.
Yes, I agree.
And you just have to go before.
Just clarify.
Exactly.
I-
It covers everything, and if you want to take, if there's reasons to take it down, and there's an appeal procedure. If you're told no, and if it's unreasonable, you can appeal it. There's all those steps.
I got it, I saw it.
Okay, may I add something
Yes.
to this tree fund? The reason why Beach Block doesn't require trees is because they were not able to sustain life with flooding. Since then, we've put up dunes. The flooding on Beach Block no longer exists. So granted, they're exposed to the salt air, but I do know that having lived there, my parents had trees out front.
But there was problems with blocking views.
The
There
view
was
was the
lots of
major
complaints. It was the
drive
view
why
that
it's
was
not-
blocked.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Rich?
Yes.
I also want to mention, last year we came up with this forestry plan,
Yes, I did want to talk. Go ahead, because I want to talk about that.
and if we review this forestry plan and make whatever we have to do, if we can adapt this with the planning board to become part of the master plan, this could help us with enforcement issues.
Okay, you could talk to the lawyer about that, however we do it.
I thought we adopted a portion of that.
I think it was. My point with this is this was done a year or two ago, and it shows studies, it shows this, it shows that, and not one tree has been saved. We could do something when this is done where we will stop the cutting of the trees. The city adopted it, the city said it was great. That's the end of it. We can do something to stop it and
Yeah, well-
actually have some results. I'm not belittling this. This is very thorough.
But the master plan has no teeth. We need an ordinance.
Yeah,
to-
this is
Stop.
done.
Absolutely, and that's, I
Yeah,
would
Actually,
love
I
to
think
see
that
one
is
passed.
mentioned
Yeah.
in the master plan, too.
So, and if it happens, we got a tree hugger on the board now, and this is happening, so he's, Oh.
Still, when the demolition permit is issued, that's when they have to know that they can't cut any trees.
well, they're gonna know
They'll do
because
everything.
everybody's gonna be
That's
notified.
really a building department issue. When they're getting a permit.
Right.
Tear a house down, you can't tear those trees down.
I know, but it's your house and you cut a tree down, you don't need a permit, but now you will, and you're gonna be notified, just like you get hurricane
That's for the
warnings.
current, yes.
No,
Individual
no,
owners.
individual owners are gonna get notified
Okay.
with the water bill. This is just an example. They're notified what your flood policies are. You're notifies all these things when you get your water bill. This can be added to it. And if people don't read it or don't know, we can't talk to everybody individually.
American Demolition's got.
We can get Amadeo to do one of those robocalls. I mean, it's, we can get to
But
everybody.
also, like, last month, we had the one, that tree bothered me, big time.
Yeah, and they said they keep it.
And what's that?
Sumner,
It was on third level.
Sumner.
Again, this has to go through a process. It has to
Yeah.
go to the governing body, be recommended to the planning board,
Right.
be adopted back at the planning, at the governing body level, just like any other ordinance.
But I think this has the support of the governing body. They just don't do anything. And this way, we'll have it, we'll present it, and we'll get it passed. And then there'll be some teeth to do this. Okay? Next issue. I don't know if you saw Roger's letter about, we had a case with Mr. Clerkin. He objected to the procedure of what we had done with how that deck was high. We determined that I still believe it was done properly, but I think his complaint of that high deck next to his house on the bay was a valid complaint. He just had no recourse because the builder was allowed to do that. This issue was brought up several years ago, when we allowed them to go 6 inches below the floor, and the objections, it passed 4-3 or whatever, whatever it is. I think it passed 4-3, and you have a deck up here, you have a deck down here, I mean, people are really getting blocked, and I think with all the new building going on, we're seeing the fault in that resolution, and I would like to turn it over to Roger for a second, because his recommendation was we can make it a standard that it sits on the bulkhead and that's it, and everybody is in the same boat. And if it's dangerous for grandmom to walk down the steps on the deck, it's dangerous for her to walk up the front of the steps to get in the house. And the stairs can be on the side, it doesn't have to take up the whole deck. Roger, would you take over this for a second? Because you had recommendations.
Sure, yeah, my recommendation is, and again, because at the time, we were still using two different flood maps, and we kind of are, but everything is up higher to accommodate the other flood map. A rear yard deck should be related to the rear yard, not the house. So, we're talking about waterfront, where there's bulkheads, and the bulkhead height recommendation is 8, elevation 8. My recommendation is the height of that rear yard deck should be no higher than 9.
So the deck could sit on the bulkhead?
2 by 12 on top
Yes.
of,
Right.
on top of the bulkhead.
You know, from an engineering standpoint, you don't want it as the foundation for the,
No, but it could.
But yes, it could be
It would
set on
be,
top.
yeah,
As
So-
permitted by DEP, right?
right. And again, we're not deciding anything tonight, but that's an issue that a subcommittee is going to bring up to the board with a recommendation.
So you wouldn't be able to walk out on your sliding glass doors
You would, no, you would have to walk down.
Building the house right now,
Well,
the
you-
house is at 13, the deck's gotta be at 10.8. You gotta walk down steps.
Well, you have to walk down a couple steps, but you don't have to walk down.
Well, you can have a deck inside your building envelope, which is permitted to be any height. I mean, if we lose a little bit of building space.
Yeah, but they
that's
don't
not
want to
bad.
get rid of their building space, but that's always an option. I cut 4 feet off my house on Lancaster so I could have a bigger deck out front. Okay. Roger also had a list of recommendations, of issues that he wanted to address, and one was, you want to go over it, since this is your list?
Sure. Building coverage, which we already discussed before, the way our definition of building coverage is worded now, it's the foundation, the perimeter of the foundation, doesn't take any consideration that if the second floor occupies the same amount of area, but overhangs, as long as it doesn't, that floor doesn't exceed the building coverage, it's not the aggregate. In my opinion, it should always be the aggregate, whatever that footprint is of that house. The furthest extent of that wall on any side,
The bird's eye view.
So cantilever it over, we can't.
that's building coverage. Should be building coverage.
Shadowed, whatever.
Right.
Again, I want to hear objections or for or against or whatever, so when we have these committees, we can get it at consensus. of the
If
board.
I'm 30,000 feet up in the air and I look down and I see a roof, that's building coverage.
That's the way we used to do it.
I understand that, but that's not what's happening, and
That's not what you want.
it's getting at.
What
it's
what
getting-
is the reasoning that, why do you think that should be?
Because, say building coverage is 30%. Your ground floor is, say you have a 10,000 square foot house, you have a 1,000 square foot of building coverage. The second floor is 1,000 square feet, but it overhangs
You got a
half
big
of the
deck on the
first floor.
front with a house
So
pushed
your
back.
actual building coverage is like 1,500 square feet.
And
But
again,
it
with a,
complies because it's measured around the foundation complies, the second floor complies, but the aggregate of the two don't comply.
Right, but so, the reason we keep building coverage at a certain amount is to allow more permeable space, or what is the reasoning, to limit building coverage? So the things aren't massive, or?
yes, that's part of it, and mass is a big part of it. And I go
Right.
back to the 2006, when this was a big uproar, when everybody in town was in an uproar, and mass was a big part of it.
Right.
But things covered by an overhang don't do great with growing things underneath them.
Right, but if the overhang doesn't encroach into the setback, aren't the setbacks the control for massiveness?
It's one of the
No,
controls.
It's one, but if you have a house here and the second floor goes to here, you really have a house that's this big, not this big.
Right, the second floor that's overhanging is abiding by the setback. I don't wanna go ahead and, I gotta think about this a little bit.
Well, that's okay, that's what, and you can come up with ideas, objections,
Right,
whatever,
yeah,
so
I-
do
you
that.
know, I'd
In
rather-
my opinion, building coverage is being
Go ahead.
abused.
Go ahead, next.
Second one is allowable building coverage. To me, the way it's written, it's a sliding scale, which a percentage already is. So it's a percentage over a percentage, which moves based on the size of the lot. The smaller the lot, the more building coverage you can have. And I suppose architects wanted that in there. But it should be a flat rate. It should be 30%. And I just ran some numbers real quick. if we had 30% building coverage on a typical R25 zone, you still have an 1,875 square foot house,
With 2 stories?
2.5 stories.
2.5 stories.
2.5 stories in an R30 zone would be 2,250. In a R40 zone, you'd still have a 3,000 square foot house. And as you get closer to 5,000 square feet, that's the drop-off point, or the cutoff point where it goes to 30%. Less, 3,000 or less, you have 40%. And again, this sliding scale doesn't make sense, that percentage. You're not losing a whole lot, but
I did I don't know what I gave to you or both your sons. That original thing from Reuben, with that crazy formula, I came up with that crazy formula because his system worked, you got to a certain point, and the bigger your lot got, the smaller your house got. And then it caught up again.
But this
So
wouldn't.
Right.
Keep his,
No.
that's the way it works.
Right.
But
So
this
I
is,
came up with this crazy formula to overcome that.
well, this is simpler.
this is
Well,
simple,
that's what I
you
did.
apply
I
30.
simplified it. I gave it to, I thought both of you, a long time ago.
All right, and,
So it's a straight line now instead of one of these things.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly.
I'll give it to you again.
I have it.
He has
somewhere. I have it scanned in, I'm sure.
in regard to that particular item, what percent of new homes that are built in Margate, what percentage you think is sold to part-time residents? What percent? Second homeowners? 90%?
I would say it's very high, like,
I mean, I'm getting 80, 90%. Every house that's torn down in Margate is a less of a population. And they're with third floors, with these big houses on small lots, and we have to be concerned with the city as a whole, not to stop big buildings. We have places for big buildings, but we need to consider that we need places where they can't be built. It affects the value of the land. That's not our consideration. We're not taking something away from somebody that has an 80-foot lot with a by right subdivision. We're not saying you need 45 feet now. That's really taking away something they have. But here, that you can't build this massive house on this little lot.
Case in point, Douglas Avenue, unit block north, I drove down the street.
Yeah.
There's 4 stories sticking up.
Yeah.
Over 1.5-story houses.
Yeah.
On an
4 stories.
undersized
I
lot.
want everyone to go down
It is.
Douglas Avenue.
Not- we-
Take a ride down Douglas Avenue.
Right.
It's a small lot. with
But this is,
4 stories.
this addresses that issue.
What addresses the issue, the thing about the 30%?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
right.
It addresses the issue that there should be more lots available. And again, your little lot, you're not gonna be able to sell for so much money because you can't build as big a house on it. If we have little lots with, that third floors aren't allowed on, summer people aren't gonna want it. They want those extra bedrooms. But it creates more of a desirable place for families to come in. And it doesn't wipe it out for the whole town. It's just on the smaller lots.
I totally, anything we can do to get more year-round
You
residents
talk
back
like
in.
40-foot lots and 35-foot lots.
Yeah, it's, we're not talking any specifics tonight, we're giving ideas, but yeah, like he was saying, the smaller the lot, you keep the same percentage. Go ahead, next, 3.
Pin the eaves down to further reduce mass. Again, this goes on to our subcommittee meeting that we kind of had ad hoc, where I'm of the opinion that we should allow 30 feet of building height across the board to simplify, because, oh, what height zone you're in, this and that. Everyone's going to 30 feet. Everyone wants a 30 feet. They're adding height, mass on the sides by just pushing the roof up, which kind of defeated the original intent when we changed the ordinance.
The intent was not.
My idea is pin those eaves down by determining a height on the eave height from the first floor. Then, whatever the height of the roof is, whatever the slope is, it is. But the sides of the house will look like a 28-foot high building.
We're gonna have to give it a distance off of the house too. You could just keep running that rake down.
Uh,
Well, typically, you don't want more than 18 inches, and then they're gonna start encroaching to the side yards.
At 18 inches.
Yeah, we can work that out,
Because
right.
If they dropped at a 24, you just picked up 6 inches. So you know,
Well-
if they got the side yard to do it,
We'll work it out.
yeah.
That-
Next.
right.
I agree.
Item number 4, on lots less than 40 feet wide, which is the minimum required width here, allow only 2 stories above parking instead of 2.5.
Yes.
That way you don't have the missile silos sticking straight up.
in the middle of year-round residential neighborhoods.
Front yard setbacks, of course, this has been ad nauseum. Get rid of the prevailing setbacks, which changes by the minute. Actually, we have a by right subdivision at Atlantic Avenue and, what was that, Johanna Mansfield? Huntington? 3 lots next to each other. They're all gonna have different prevailing front yard setbacks along that side street, because they all include a new lot as they get closer to Ventnor. That's
So what are we gonna make the, what are we gonna do with this?
something we have to address right now, or not right now, but ASAP, is the front yard setbacks along the parkway on Ventnor Avenue is 5 feet.
That's all?
Right.
How it is?
Well, I've been working with every architect and builder. They've been accommodating me. I said, well, because they still think it's the prevailing. I'm like, well, let's make it 8 or 10. And they've been working with me, and to preserve the integrity of the parkway. I don't know how they got in there back in 2004 or whenever it was, 14. That's got to be fixed.
And come up with something. I think
I
5
think-
feet's too small,
I
which is
think
the
15
minimum.
feet on the parkway is adequate.
What's that, Roger?
15 feet on the parkway,
Absolutely.
to the house.
And maybe something on Atlantic Avenue too, which is
Those lots are a little bit smaller,
are they? All right.
front yard.
Most double corner lots, is that going to apply to both streets then?
That's for
It
discussion.
will still be prevailing on the side streets for
You
now.
write these things down.
Until we
This-
determine, I think what,
Consider this, or we'll be here all night.
I think what's gonna have to happen for the front yard setbacks is we're gonna have to go out and measure whatever the prevailing is on each block, and that'll be the setback rounded up
For that block?
for everywhere,
For everywhere. Right,
everywhere.
right.
You're gonna have a chart through town, whatever.
Yes. Ocean City does it, it seems it works, and it's for the same reason. If you don't do it, there's people coming in with pitchforks and knives. It'll be a lot of work. Maybe we get some Rutgers students down here to do it for us.
They can count the
as
trees
a-
at the same time.
Right?
Go ahead, next. Next.
Yeah. All right, third floor decks, permitting them island-wide with stiff controls.
Say that again?
Third floor decks, I think we should permit them island-wide with stiff controls.
We've already, we've talked about that. We've already agreed on that, it just hasn't happened.
If it's too big, it's a no. If it's, you know, if it's
We'll- we'll put
Items
it-
like, you're only allowed to have one. It has to be within the building setback, stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
next.
treating spas and hot tubs differently than pools. It's become an issue treating a pool, same as, or a spa is the same as a pool. You know, if they have locking lids, which they all do, you know, making them have a fence, most of them want a fence anyway. And they should be allowed to be against the building,
When the thing goes up.
yes,
Just not underneath the electrical panel
right,
or meter. Was that the 7?
yes.
Okay. Next, the third floor 50% rule was done to reduce mass. And Clem has brought this up several times. What's happening is they have the 50% here and then a double floor, 30-foot ceiling on the second floor. So we're not reducing mass. Look at Union Avenue. We have a full 3-story plus roof building, and they are working it so only 50% is usable. That fraud on, I'm sorry, my tongue slipped. We had a case recently, the coffered ceilings underneath to make it not usable. I don't know what to do. One suggestion is that the roof can only cover the 50% that's usable on the third floor. The entire purpose of that was to reduce mass, and it's not happening. So you can still have your 50% third floor, but you can't use the rest of it and say, well, it's not usable underneath.
What will it look like?
It looks like all the ones that, it's only recently. If you look at Union and Winchester, you look at Union and Monmouth, you look at Sumner Avenue that we just approved,
You know, we caused that problem with the 20-foot to play.
well, we did. I'm saying,
Again, by
we're
adjusting
correct.
the eave height, that'll help correct
Yes.
that. And making everything be below the
Why
roof.
they're architects and we're builders.
Yeah, no, it will, but if we limit the roof, and again, this is one idea, if we limit the roof to cover what's usable, that's one answer. If there's a better answer, fine, but we want the mass brought down, and we're not taking any living space away from anybody. House raisings. This is another thing that we did not used to let happen, and it's happening now. It happened right behind me with Floyd's house. He was handicapped, we gave it to him. He was raising his house. The backyard was 2 feet from my property line. They ended up with a 30-foot wall on my property line. They raised that house and they demolished that house. They left one side wall standing and rebuilt that entire house. He should have had to meet every setback because they built a brand-new house, and he still would have had as much room and the elevator and everything else he needed. We did the same thing on a case recently. That guy completely demolished the top of the house and completely gutted the first floor, and we ended up with a 38-foot wall 3 feet from the property line. You stood right there in the property and said, we're smothering the guy next to us. We are. We have to consider the,
I won't do that again. Didn't we turn it down?
no,
Adams?
no, it wasn't Adams. But it's, no, but it's, if they're doing that, and the point is too, they're spending more money to raise the house and tear it down and put it up again for the sole purpose of maintaining their setbacks. And if they're spending that much money, let them build a new, it's cheaper to build a new house. That guy on Adams or Jefferson or whatever, but that's exactly what he was doing, with a 1-foot pathway between those houses. Oh, we did, but we just passed another one that did. And again, we vote yes, we vote no, we're stuck with our vote, or we're happy with our vote. But that's what's happening, and that's how they're getting around that rule and keeping these setbacks. Now, with raising the houses as they exist, most of these houses are not these ginormous houses. They're more modest houses, and if you let that house be raised, fine. But that's not what's happening. And, we're really screwing up the neighborhoods. And please, this is my feelings. I mean, if you say we're not screwing up neighborhoods, fine. But these are the things that I see as that modifications to the master plan because things that we find aren't working or being abused. Allowing garages under the house was supposed to increase green coverage. If we allow garages along with a detached garage or a cement driveway, it defeats that purpose. I know we love driveways because people to park in them. People don't park in their driveways. Some do, some don't, but you don't count on they're going to be parking in their driveways.
People don't park in their garages, we count that.
No, I know we do. But if we're going to allow a garage under the house, there shouldn't be another garage, there shouldn't be parking.
Well, there's not. They're not allowed to have a garage.
Well, we just gave one where we gave him a whole driveway on the side of his house.
We did it on Iroquois.
So here's this is Mr. Palmisano's addition. Houses with 2 garages underneath eliminate all street parking in front of the house. The garages need to be together, so one 20-foot driveway, Exhibit Z.
So when you put 2 or 3 houses together, you put 2 or 3 houses together, there's no parking for 120 feet.
Either,
They lock it up for their own person.
yeah, either,
There's not enough room there.
There's 5 feet between their.
You give a twin house, it's a twin.
That's one house.
either they have both garages together with the stairs on the side with one 20-foot driveway.
This is an alternative.
I understand, but or now with a detached garage, they can only have a garage for 1 car. We can say they can only park in half the house. Now, it's the full length of the house. They could still get 2 cars or have storage in a car in front of it. They could get 2 parking spaces and not let them have 2/3 of the house in front be a garage. That's a consideration. Smaller lots, smaller houses, he covered that. Most of the subdivisions, the small lot variances are from spec builders. It's not people that are building it. It's not the benefit to the city, it doubles their profits. And we've got to look at the city as a whole. I catch hell every day out there, especially since that last meeting when people realized who was on the board. And maybe I'm chairman and they come to me, but the things you allow, this House on Union, I'm getting it again and again. We rarely let subdivisions happen anymore unless they're by right. But, subdivisions that have happened, I catch hell for. And, and again, I mean, I'm bringing up something I voted no for, the entire board voted yes, I'm happy with that. But if it's in a multifamily or duplex zone, which is also mixed with singles and duplexes, if the lot is too small, it's not a duplex lot. We can't control parking in this city. There's nothing you can do about it, but we can control the congestion. We allow more and more, congestion of more and more people in a smaller area. I can't get a reservation at Stephen Cookie's till October after 5 o'clock at night.
Like the Washington Avenue one where we had 3 bedrooms, we let 20 bedrooms there because of multifamily.
But if it fits, it's zoned for multifamily. If it fits, it's okay for duplex. Just one second. It's okay for duplex. But if it's undersized, we have a chance here to do something about it that benefits the whole city, and we haven't been doing that. Again, I don't care how you vote that up or down, but it's something I have a problem with, and that I'm hearing from year-round residents again and again of, we're just letting more density and more density. Again, parking, there's nothing, it's never been parking, it was worse in the 60s. Pinky.
With my realtor hat on, I would like to, of course, reduce density and keep the city, not overwhelmed with these.
And again, I'm not changing anything for legal lots.
What I want to say is, and I'm not just saying give them what they want,
Right.
build it and they will come. You also don't want to chase them away. The
This
market
is-
is thriving, our
Right.
market share is great, our sales are up. When I look at Ventnor now, and although there's a lot going on in Ventnor, the unit sales and what's going on there and values have diminished in the second quarter. So I'm just saying, yes, we want to keep our
We're
city
only
beautiful, but we
talking
also
about
don't wanna-
we're only talking about undersized lots here. That's
But
all.
I'm just saying, keep in mind,
Right.
we do want a flourishing summer.
Right, but we have that. Most of the houses are that. We are so far over the tipping point with summer houses that that's not the problem. What happens is, Mr. Collins said, well, if you put a single there, nobody will build it. Yes, they will, because the price is going to go down, because you can't put a duplex on that undersized lot. Its supply, its market is going to say, well, that lot's not worth so much. Does it hurt the owner? Yeah, but we're not taking anything away because it's already an undersized lot.
I don't want to create more density.
No, I understand, but I'm only talking about things that don't fit in with our zoning, that we have a chance to do something about it.
Adding on to that real quick,
Go ahead.
our parking schedule for residential, single-family detached, and two-family stops at 6 bedrooms where you have to have 4 off-street spaces. I would like to add that any additional bedroom requires an additional parking space.
After 6? Yeah.
After 6.
I have no problem, yeah.
You have 7 bedrooms, you need 5. You have 8 bedrooms, you need 6.
They're only building bedrooms to increase the property value.
We, Essex Avenue, we replaced 4 bedrooms with 10 bedrooms. I mean, it's
Which one?
Essex Avenue behind the school. Right behind the school on Essex Avenue by Thai School. Anyway, that's my list. I have copies of this I can give to people if you want it. And please look at it and give your comments and what your suggestions are or whatever. And then we'll start getting together with some study committees. Go ahead.
One other thing is, just riding around, I see a lot of driveways and where they just put all the pavers in, the grasses are gone, new houses.
That's enforcement, Craig.
I know, that's enforcement, but, it's enforcement.
It is, it's enforcement, and
I hate seeing it, I mean, it's like,
Well, I
we
gotta
fight
say,
for the grass, we fight for it, and then
Well, my theory on that, or my reasoning on that is, it shouldn't be permitted, because they're gonna fill it in. Should not be permitted.
Should be permitted, the grass or?
The grass between the tire strips should not be permitted.
I kid.
well,
No,
it
they
should be
gotta have
concrete.
the option. I wanted it. I mean, it's,
Concrete, but they don't-
If you want it, right, but then it can't count towards,
yes.
landscape.
Yeah, that's fine, but you can't.
but that's the way it was before, and it was being forced.
can I say something about
Yeah,
that?
absolutely.
And I don't know where this thing came about, like, I know there's always been an issue with stones, but if we allowed, I thought it was always like 5% you were allowed to put stone.
Now, if
For
we
mulch bed.
allowed stones,
For what?
For mulching bed.
For mulch purposes.
if we allowed stones in that spot, they're permeable.
Yes.
Nobody, why would somebody take out stones to put pavers in when you already have a permeable situation? Why don't we allow that area to be stone?
You don't need sprinklers in it.
Right, you know, and then it keeps people from doing that.
And then you look like Longport and Ocean City.
I don't agree with that. I mean, I'm driving down Monmouth Avenue and I look at the city building and there's freaking boulders on the side of the.
Well, that's the city. They don't follow rules.
You know, I'd go along with, just put papers in on sand.
Yeah,
The grass doesn't last.
right.
It does because nobody parks there.
Yeah, because that's the only ones that last.
But it does, they're all over town. They're not all are. Okay, that's it. We can adjourn. I'll give these out or I'll email them to everybody. Please come back with suggestions or ideas or whatever. And do I hear a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Aye.
I, Kathy.
Discussion about